was really good, Maddie. I should hire you to do all of my intros. That was fantastic. Well, hey, welcome to each and every one of you. It's a privilege for me to join you, and I hope this will be super empowering. I am a big believer in making things very real and in, shall I say, doing the work. Doing the work. She mentioned that I deal with frontline leaders. I define a frontline leader as anyone that works with a team. And if you've been a leader in any capacity, whether you have a title or just you're the one that everybody comes to when they have questions, you know that it's a lot of hard work. And so everything I do is trying to empower that. This is designed, I'd say still leadership. You can see that this was designed specifically for leaders, and we've scratched out the word leaders and written everyone. And we did that so that it would be applicable to all teams, because quite frankly, this particular workshop was not one of the workshops that's part of my company's normal offering. This came from an article that I published on LinkedIn like 6 months ago, and somebody said, hey, can we do a workshop on that? And I was like, sure, why not? So I built the workshop. This is like the 6th time I've now given this workshop because it seems to be making a difference, and that's what I'm all about, is making a difference. So we are talking about failure. Who is ready to get started on failure? That was weak. Let's try that again. Who's ready to get started on failure? Excellent. First question of the night. What has been your biggest failure in 2024? Think about that for just a second. I'm not going to ask you to answer it out loud yet. But think about it. Give that a second. What has been your biggest failure this year? And as you're racking your brain, I would invite you to consider, why is that such a hard question? I would invite you to consider the fact that it's one of two reasons. Either we haven't failed yet this year. Don't lie to me, you've all failed this year. Or we really, really don't like to admit when we've failed. Like, we have this natural aversion to it. In fact, I would go out on a limb right now if I had little thought bubbles that had popped out over each of your heads right now of what you were considering saying if I had called on you. What you were going to tell me was not like a real failure. It was going to be something kind of like, you guys remember when you took that class on how to answer a job interview question, and they told you that when they asked you, what's your biggest weakness, you were supposed to reframe a strength to make it sound like a weakness, right? Like, I work so hard, I just don't have good work-life balance. It's like, yeah. I've worked HR. Let me just tell you, nobody's buying that, okay? And so that's what probably most of us would do. And that's not because you're a bad person. It's not because you're not being real. It's because that is the natural human condition. To say, I am not throwing my dirt out there. I'll spill the tea, but not mine. And that's just kind of who we are. That's kind of how we are. And so in order for us to really tackle this topic, we have to be willing to get past that. So since I don't believe the first one is a possibility, and that is that we haven't failed, but I do think that we are adverse to admitting we failed, we're going to tackle that part of this tonight. We're going to tackle this idea of trying to avoid failure, being afraid of failure, all of that stuff. That's what I want to do. So, if you're ready to actually tackle failure, say, let's go. Let's go. Excellent. The first step, we got to own our failure. Ladies and gentlemen, until we can own our failure, until we can actually acknowledge what we have done, there's no room for growth. In fact, they only get bigger. How many of you guys know who the Nikola Corp is? So right about the time, how many of you guys know what Tesla is? Everyone know what Tesla is? Okay. So the name Tesla comes from an actual person named Nikola Tesla. And right about the same time that Tesla was getting started with their e-vehicles, there was another company out there called Nikola who was trying hydrogen-powered vehicles. Now, this here on the chart here shows what happens when we don't admit our failure. Does anybody know the story of what happened with Nikola? No? Okay. Man, I was really wishing I could call on somebody because I have no idea either. No, I'm joking. So if you look here at the screen, you have this red line right here. My hand is all kind of shaky right here. And this right here is at about $300 a share. That was how much Nikola's stock was trading for in 2020, 2021, etc. In 2021, that was when Tesla came out with their vehicle and pretty much everybody started getting them. And Nikola was like, oh crud, we need to move and we need to move fast or we're going to get left behind in this alt-fuel vehicle race. And so they decided that the best thing that they could do was pretend like they had a functional prototype. Emphasis on the word pretend. They literally recorded a video of their prototype truck rolling down a hill. And what you see here in this chart is the stock spiking because we have a hydrogen-powered prototype that works. Right up until it didn't. And if you would have bought Nikola's stock yesterday, you would have paid $5.40 a share. It went from about $300 a share all the way up past $2,000 a share. And as you can see, it has continued just and it looks kind of like a basketball that nobody's touched in a while. That's what happens when we hide our failures. If Nikola had said, hey guys, we haven't figured it out, we're still working on it, would their stock have taken a hit? Probably. It wouldn't look like that though. Because they wouldn't have built up hype that everything's great, all of a sudden for it no longer to be great. Now, it's easy to point at other people, it's easy to point at big corporations. I asked you what your biggest failure was this year. I didn't ask you to speak it out, but I believe in going first. I believe in setting the example. So, for me, I'm going to talk about my life's biggest failure. I'm not going to talk about this year because my life's biggest failure is much more, shall we say, dramatic, okay? So for me, my life's biggest failure came to manifestation way back in 2009, which some of you were probably still in school in 2000, like elementary school in 2009, okay? But in 2009, I had deep-rooted character flaws. I was a liar. I was a manipulator. I was one of those people, didn't matter how things were actually going, I was pretending they were going well, and everybody thought they were. I would never admit failure. I was the one that I could absolutely have just failed, but when I tell the story, oh no, I succeeded for sure. And you're stupid for questioning me. Well, in a very dramatic turn of events, that resulted, the combination of character flaws and a lack of willingness to admit the problems that were within me, resulted, let me see, there we go, not acknowledging failure, resulted in me ending up making a very, very stupid decision at 19 years old. That decision involved me and 3 of my friends going and deciding to start a fire, and my best friend did not make it out alive. Resulted in a 14-year prison sentence. I spent from June of 2009 until May of 2021 locked up in the Arizona Department of Corrections because I wouldn't acknowledge my own problems. And if we don't acknowledge what's happening, it will only ever get worse. Now, you wouldn't know that today. I did good things. I made good decisions. I started to acknowledge my problems. And that's why I can stand in front of you today and actually share this story as somebody that has a completely turned around life and is doing much better than I was in 2010, say. But these are dramatic examples of what happens when we don't acknowledge our failures. So, as leaders, let's bring it back down to kind of the level that we're on today. When we hide our failures, what happens at an organizational level? The first thing that happens is we prioritize our ego over our growth. Bottom line. How many of you guys have worked for a boss that was never wrong? Cheryl, are you the boss that's never wrong?
No, I've worked for me.
Okay. No, we have, right? And their ego is more important than what needs to happen at the organization. You've got a great idea. You've pointed something out, and they're like, no, I did it that way. It's going to stay the way it is. Does that resonate with anybody here today?
Yeah.
It promotes our ego over growth when we refuse to acknowledge our failure. Here's the other thing it does. It creates a culture of perfection. And have you ever worked for an organization where failure is not acceptable? They'll even say like failure is not an option. Only one of you is willing to admit that? Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. I thought your arms were broken. I wasn't sure what was going on. Sometimes people are just like, I don't want to move my hands. And so it creates this culture of perfection. Now here's the reality. Is there such thing as a perfect person or a perfect company? So when we have a culture of perfection, is it real, or are we right back to Nicola? We're right back to Nicola, aren't we? Because we've created this culture of perfection that doesn't allow for failure, and here's what it also doesn't allow for. It doesn't allow for growth. Specific to those of you that are in any position of leadership, whether you have a title or not, the third thing that not acknowledging our failures does is it puts you on a pedestal. It puts you on this kind of platform. And I'm going to be honest, this is where I was in 2009. I was the golden child. Back in 2009, I was a martial arts instructor. I had over 500 students. I could do no wrong. Remember, I never admitted failure. I was on this pedestal, and guess what happened when I failed? Oh, how the mighty have fallen. I was on the 5 o'clock news for like 4 days. I was a nobody in the big picture of things, but because I had this facade, this platform, this pedestal, everyone loves it when you fall off a pedestal. Let me just tell you, okay? If you're on a pedestal right now, if you're the guy or the girl at work that's never wrong, get yourself off of that pedestal as fast as you possibly can. I promise you. Because otherwise you will have people actively trying to sabotage you, okay? That's going to happen. Get off that and you say, hey, I don't need to be on this pedestal. I want to focus on growth more than I want to focus on being something or saying I'm something. And this kind of brings me to the big idea that I want to get to first, and that is I really don't even trust leaders that insist they haven't failed. I mean, think about it, right? If you have worked for somebody, Cheryl raised her hand, she said she's worked for a lot of them. If you've worked for somebody that never admits failure, do you genuinely respect that person? Are you inspired by that person? Is that somebody that you're telling your friends and colleagues, oh man, you should come work for so-and-so, they're amazing? Of course not. See, there's only one of two possibilities for a leader or really anyone who hasn't failed. One, they're a liar. That's probably the one that's actually true. But there is a second possibility, and the second possibility, if they haven't failed, is they're what I'm going to call a knight in shining armor. Now, for you ladies, I know a knight in shining armor has a very romantic connotation. Oh, he's my knight in shining armor. But have you ever considered what a knight in shining armor would actually indicate? See, knights went out to battle. And when you actually did something, your armor was not shiny. It was dinged and stuffed and bloody and grassy and gross. And if you were actually out there accomplishing something and doing something venerable and honorable, your armor was not shiny. It was the one that stood at the gate all day doing absolutely nothing who got to keep the shiny armor. And so leaders who have not failed are either liars or they've never actually done anything worthwhile. If you've ever had the privilege of working for maybe the boss's son or daughter, now there are plenty of bosses' sons and daughters that genuinely are fantastic. I'm not saying they're all disqualified. But you know the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one that the only reason they are in the position they are in is because they happen to know the person that owns the company. And they're a knight in shining armor. Because they get to post up by the door and look pretty and pretend like they're somebody important and tell you what to do and never actually have to get into the mess. Never actually have to get their hands dirty. Never actually earn the opportunity to share in the struggle or earn that real title of leader. But leaders that have failed, leaders that have gone through some stuff, leaders that have had to navigate difficulties, troubles, challenges, some of which maybe we have never experienced ourselves, those are the ones that we look up to, aren't they? Like if I were to name some people that we would probably all kind of hold in high regard. I think of Mahatma Gandhi. Would we hold him in high regard? Mother Teresa. Would we hold her in high regard? Have you ever noticed that the people that we look up to the most are always the people that have endured the most? It's never the people that haven't gone through some stuff. It's never the people that haven't had to navigate difficulties and challenges. It's always the people that are like, better you than me, because I couldn't deal with that. And that's where real leadership is born, because real leaders, if you've been through some stuff, you get to help other people go through stuff. You're not that person that's like, you did what? You're the person that's like, no, I get it. I've been there. I've done that. I've messed up. Let me introduce you to how I figured it out, and maybe it'll work for you, maybe it won't, but I know the struggle, and I know what it takes to move forward. So admitting our failure is a huge, huge part of what we have to do to be effective as people and to be effective as leaders. And I really want to make this something that we can do. Now, I'm not going to ask for anybody to just spill their dirt, okay? You might still be going through that failure right now. I did a workshop with this the other day, and the guy confessed in front of everybody. He said, I've blown $40,000 on lascivious living in the last 3 months, and I don't know how to stop. I had somebody else talk about a divorce. I had somebody else talk about a 40-year career being ruined. So some people are willing to spill. No one here is going to be forced to spill. But I do want to invite you. I'm going to be passing out a paper right now. I want to invite you to take right now. I'm going to stop talking for about 5 minutes. And I want to invite you to actually write on this piece of paper. Now, this is your piece of paper. So I'm not going to make... Here, take as many as you need and then pass the next ones to that back table, because I know I didn't give you the right amount. It's going to be up to you how much you get from this exercise. Absolutely. This is for you. This is not for me. This is not for the chamber. This is not for Greenville. This is so that individually we have what we need to grow from our experiences. And so I would invite you to just fill out this paper, and I'm going to stop talking for about the next 5 minutes. All right, if you're still finishing up, that's totally fine. At the bottom of those pages, there was a line that said, I am willing or not willing to share this story with others so they can grow too. Who circled willing? Go raise your hand. A couple of you did? Okay. Are you willing to share tonight? Raise your hand. Yeah? Okay. I'm going to start at the back, and then I will work my way here. I am sure that there are tons of other really great examples that could be read tonight. You're welcome to share them with each other. There's nothing that keeps you from sharing. In fact, I recommend it because how many people can she save from that exact same scenario? How many startups can we save? How many events can somebody that has grand ideas but not really exactly know how to do the follow through? How many more people can we serve if we share these things instead of get bogged down by the shame? Instead of try to hide the failure, instead of adopt an imposter syndrome, and instead we just say, this is me, who can I help? And there's so much power in doing that. Why? Because those who fail are better leaders. They're just better. Those three of you that just spoke, I'm assuming everyone else in here as well, but those three of you spoke, you are going to be a better leader because of that experience. Not in spite of, because of. I want to really emphasize that. So if you're sitting here tonight and you're like, I'm good. They are going to be better because of those experiences. And I get it. Here's what's going to happen. In about 10 years, you're going to look back at that and you're going to be like, I thought that was the end of the world. It's not, but I sure thought so in that moment. And as you go through these experiences, I mean, with my situation, right, that was 19 years old. I don't usually say this in this presentation, but I think it fits right now. The very first conversation my attorney had with me, I had a public defender. The public defender, through the bulletproof glass, said, hello, my name is Jeffrey Kirchler. I'm your court-appointed attorney. I will be your court-appointed attorney for the duration of your pretrial proceedings, unless the state chooses to seek the death penalty, at which point I will no longer be your court-appointed attorney and they will assign another. Imagine your 19-year-old self hearing that. Your life is over at that moment. Now, thankfully, they didn't. Really didn't make sense to. Someone had passed, but there was no malicious intent. Obviously, no one was supposed to get hurt in this. But imagine that, 19 years old. And yet, over the course of those 12 years, I got 3 associate degrees, a bachelor's, a master's degree. I developed an entire peer education program within the prison system. And if you were to talk to the Arizona prison system, I talked to the assistant director of the Arizona Department of Corrections today, and they're talking about having me go back in to train the officers. But in that moment, your life feels over. It feels like the end of the world. But leaders who fail are better. Why? Because they're more empathetic, they're more compassionate, they're able to walk with you on that journey. Leaders who fail create a culture of growth. Now, this is something, I love this story. I love to share a story about this because before I went out on my own completely, I was the director of revenue for an international specialty logistics company. It's a mouthful. Basically, we dealt with all the packages that FedEx and UPS couldn't handle, and I was the director of revenue. I managed, 5 teams, 3 departments over 4 continents. All right, so a lot of influence that I had. And I get a call one day from a team lead. So director, manager, supervisor, team lead, 3 layers lower than my position. And she says, hey, on our pricing sheet, we've got 2 scenarios. The numbers are different, but they're overlapping. And I don't understand why this overlapping number for this device is different in this scenario than this scenario. And I look at it and I go, you're right. That should be the same. I don't know why it's different either. Now, in theory, the CEO of the organization, who I reported directly to, is the only one who had the official authority to make the change in that official pricing document. But he was on vacation. It was, I think it was a $100 price that I was dealing with. So the question was, should this be included in the base rate, or should we add this on as an additional $100 expense? Okay, and so I said, add it on to include it with the base rate. If I'm wrong, I'll pay for it. Now, here's the thing about this company that I was a part of. Unfortunately, it was what we call a CYA culture. Anyone know what a CYA culture is? For those of you that don't like cussing and would get offended at her, cover your ears. CYA stands for cover your ass. And a CYA culture says, it is never my fault. I will cross every T. I will dot every I. I will make sure that there is no way, no how that anyone can ever come back and bite me on anything. You know you've worked in a CYA culture when people won't take a call. They require you to send an email. That is the epitome of a CYA culture, because they are going to save that email every single time. Unfortunately, I'd only been with the company for a couple of years at that point, and the CYA culture had really worked its way in deep. And so when I said, if it's wrong, I'll pay for it, that's all anybody in a CYA culture wants to hear. It's not going to be on me? Cool, I'll do what you said. And of course, you know what I did for her? Because I like to be a good guy. I said, I'll even send you an email and put it in writing. Okay? Not only did I send an email, I put it in writing, and I sent it to the CEO. So it wasn't just to her, giving her permission. I fronted myself out and said, here's the decision I made. Here's the situation. If I'm wrong, I apologize. Guess who was wrong? CEO wrote back, no, that's not correct. I have it that way for a reason. Here's the reason. I said, oops, my bad. I'll pay for the device if you want. For the record, that's an amazing strategy move. No CEO is ever going to ask you to pay for it, but it looks really good when you say it. I meant it too. If I'd had to, I would have. But He said, no, don't worry about it. Let's just learn from it. Now, I'm going to be pretty transparent right now. I'm going to say I don't think I've ever heard those words come out of that CEO's mouth. So by me putting myself in that spot of vulnerability, it promoted a culture of growth even above me. But I took it one step further. I called Norma, that was her name. I called Norma back. Remember, Norma is 3 levels lower than me. She's a team lead, there's a supervisor above her, a manager above her, and then a director. And she's in operations, so really I'm not even in her chain of command. I'm like over here on the org chart, right? And so I called Norma back and I said, hey Norma, I need you to put in a quality control code on me. You should have seen her eyes. Nobody wants a quality control code in a CYA culture. She says, what? I said, yeah, I want everybody to learn from this. I made the wrong call, and you and I know about it now, but who else is going to find out? How are we going to make sure nobody else makes this mistake unless we put in the QA code or QC code so that it comes up in the QA meeting and then it gets disseminated to everybody else? You know, I had to call her back 3 times to make sure she put that code in. See, leaders that are willing to fail are going to create that culture of growth because they're not afraid of, oh, what if I look bad? They're afraid of, what if I don't help other people grow? What if I don't grow from this? What if all of this cost is for nothing because nothing good actually comes from it? And that's why I put those last couple sections on that page. The lessons I learned were, and all was not lost. And I now see that because that's the real journey of failure. And yet, I've been sitting here the whole night telling you that failure is, you have to admit it and you have to own it and you have to just say, I did it. And yet at the same time, failure is a paradox. Because I truly believe everything I've said tonight at the same time as I believe that failure is not real. That's called a juxtaposed, I just lost the other word. When 2 things can't be true at the same time. You know what I'm talking about. Failure is a paradox. Why? Because here's the thing. If we own it, if we acknowledge it, and if we learn from it, it's no longer a failure. It's a stepping stone on the path to success. It's a part of growth. There's no such thing as failure. Thomas Edison said, I have not failed 700 times, talking about the light bulb. I have not failed once. I have succeeded in proving that those 700 ways will not work. When I have eliminated the ways that will not work, I will find the way that will. When we acknowledge it, when we say, hey, this is what happened, it's just a step on the path to success. How many of you know the story of Post-it notes? You know the story of Post-it notes? You know how they came to be? No? Okay, it's okay. I won't put you on the spot. Post-it notes came about by a mistake. They were not setting out to invent the world's least stickiest note. They were actually setting out, 3M, the company that owns or creates Post-it notes, was setting out to create the world's stickiest glue. Hashtag failure. But 3M has a curious policy. In their lab, if you fail, you don't throw away the results. You take the results and you file them away, and they have an entire team of people that work on those failures to see what we've discovered by accident. And that glue that was supposed to be the stickiest glue ever turned out to be, well, it lasts just long enough for you to just long enough for you to need the note, but not quite long enough to last after you need it. It sticks there, like for 3 weeks. And then the day you need it, it's like, where did the note go? Yeah. And they invented Post-it notes. Put a little bit of sticky on the back, post it here, post it there. I don't know. I've been trying to find out ever since I created this presentation. I've been trying to find out exactly how much of 3M's revenue comes from Post-it note, and I can't get the numbers. At least I haven't found them. If anybody here finds them, please email them to me because I can't figure it out. But it's a sizable chunk of 3M's revenue comes from this mistake that somebody didn't say, well, I was trying to get the stickiest glue. I suck. filed it away. Somebody else came along and said, hey, I know. We'll make the most useless thing ever. Now, I want to make this tangible for us because I think that what happens is we can intellectually understand what I'm saying tonight. And as we look back on failures, especially ones that are a long time ago, right? It's really easy for me now, 15, 20 years later, to be like, yeah, man, I learned a lot from that situation. It's really hard to think of that in the moment, and it's even harder to think about that when you think you might fail. See, it's in the moments before failure that we kind of end up in this hyper-suspended state where either we try to just press through and pretend like it's not a failure and I'm going to make this work, or we try to dodge the failure by pivoting. Because we're scared to death of the failure. We really are. And so I want to give you a tool. We're not going to do this tonight. We don't have the time. But I'm going to give you another page. And what you're going to notice is that this page looks very similar to the page that you had just a few minutes ago. The difference is that at the top, instead of saying confession of failure, it says confession of fear. And the idea here is that when you are afraid to fail, this could be a resource for you to go through some steps and ask yourself, did anybody not get one? I have a couple more up here. We ran out at any table. Everyone's good? Okay. We have a resource here that says, hey, my name is, and I'm afraid I might fail when I do this. And again, we're not going to do this right now. This is for you to take home and do on your own time. And then if I mess up, here's the consequences. Because guys, failure does result in consequences. All right? 14 years, pretty big consequence. I'm not saying there's no consequences. There will be consequences. But sometimes you don't fail and there's just an absolute success, and I put that in there. If I succeed, it'll be epic because, and you have an opportunity to talk about the positives. But then it's kind of the last section. Either way, I will win because I will learn. I am going to learn. When I stepped out on my own to start this business and to say I was going full-fledged, because remember, I started with it kind of being a hobby while I was working a full-time job, I had a conversation with another entrepreneur, and he said, listen, John, no matter what happens, you will never regret making that decision because you are going to learn so much, either making it work or trying to make it work. And that's the reality. That's how cool this experience of work and life is. That no matter what, either way, you will win because you're going to learn. As long as you're willing to say, this is what we're doing and this is how we're doing it. And if I fail, I fail. But if I don't, here's the success. And if I do, here's the other way I'm going to succeed because I'm going to learn from it and I'm going to grow from it. I'm going to become better equipped to start a business. I'm going to create an even better plan for next time. I'm going to be an even better speaker, presenter, trainer. And it's all because of that chance that I took. In conclusion, Henry Ford said, failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. I don't know why that is, there we go. Failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. A little more knowledge, a little more understanding, a little more experience, a little more opportunity to say, I didn't have it quite as well as I thought I did. I was 22 and I was a dreamer. Don't ever stop being dreamers, please. Please don't stop being dreamers. But now I got dreams with knowledge. Now I got dreams with wisdom. Now I got dreams with experience. The leader who sees failure and sees success, and success in progress is what I call a servant-minded leader, one who's able to serve those that they lead. The leader who sees failure and sees success in progress is a growing leader. I said that out of order, my bad. Growing leader, a servant-minded leader, a leader who's going to change the world. When you stop seeing failure as the end of the road and simply see it as a step in the journey to success, dare I say, as I called this presentation, workshop, whatever, the secret to success. Success is rarely found without lots of hills and valleys and troubles and difficulties. The secret is to take the failures and learn from them. I appreciate each and every one of you for letting me do this for you tonight. I hope that it's been beneficial and impactful.